I don't feel alone. We just settled in and it already feels like home.
You're listening to the Feels Like Home podcast with Mike Throne and Marty Ford. Powered by Horizon. This is big. This is gig. Hey guys, this is Marty and welcome back to the Feels Like Home podcast for part 2 of our interview with Ben Hartsock. Ben touches on some of his favorite moments as an Ohio State Buckeye. And then we ask the big question: what is your opinion on the name, image, and likeness deals that are happening in college sports? And Ben had a great response to that. And so that's what we're going to wrap up with our part 2 of our interview with Ben Hartsock. Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as Mike and I did. We had a wonderful time with Ben. He was very gracious with his time and his energy, and just was a wonderful interview. So we appreciate it. Thanks for listening in, and we hope you enjoy this with Ben Hartsock. Yeah, you were fortunate to be around a lot of great leaders, though, in your career. From high school on, and so no doubt that that developed you into a great leader. So that's pretty great stories. If you think about your entire career, I know you have a million stories to tell, but what are maybe a couple of your favorite sports moments that you've ever been a part of?
Well, some of the most treasured memories I have, they go back to Ohio State. There's a connection for me that I'm so thankful for, and it comes from the history. My mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, my wife, my aunt, my uncle, like they all went to Ohio State. Like if you were going to go to college, you were going to go to Ohio State. And so we grew up watching everybody, Chris Spielman and Eddie George and Joe Germain and everybody. That's what we did. And so for me to get that opportunity, when I got the scholarship offer, I couldn't get my letter of intent fast enough. My dad will tell the story about how the day that I was at their summer camp, and Coach Cooper was the one, and say what you want about John Cooper, I owe him a tremendous debt of gratitude because he gave me the scholarship that changed my life forever. So I'm thankful for that. But he offered the scholarship, and I had to go to the payphone. That'll date myself a little bit. I went to the payphone and called Dad. And Mom, Dad, you're not going to believe it. They offered me a scholarship, and it gives me chills thinking about it. And my parents, of course, were excited. And we hang up, and my dad didn't tell me this till years later, but he said he hung up the phone and said, "Boy, our boy's he's gonna wear the scarlet and gray." And then they kind of said, "I wonder if he'll ever play." Just the uncertainty. I think the Hartsocks, if anything, we have realistic expectations. But I did get that chance to play. And then, fast forward to one of those moments that I'll never forget, but I'll treasure, is at Tempe in that championship on the championship stage. I had 2 moments that I'll never forget. You're standing there. The game was obviously unbelievable, and the theatrics of how it went down, beating Miami in double overtime. The 13-point underdogs, all of that. But standing on a stage that, again, I grew up watching Michael Jordan and John Elway and Brett Favre stand on these their championship trophy. I was there. I've got the picture where I got to hold the title. I got to hold the crystal football as the confetti rained down. And I had that moment to say, I'm on the other side of the camera. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm from Ross County. I can't believe that I get to do this. It was so tremendous. And then the other side story to that is, Mike, you talk about you lived through the drought that Georgia lived through. Well, Ohio State had been in a drought since before 2002. It had been since 1968. And so I grew up, my dad graduated in 1968, and he told stories. It was part of our upbringing as a kid. His dad scrounged up enough money and his parents to send him to Pasadena to that Rose Bowl where the super sophomores won the national championship in 1968. And so for him to have that memory, and then fast forward to where I could look up and see my dad, who's not an emotional man, but I could tell from even 50 in the stands that he was emotional in that moment, that we had to have that shared experience it's a treasure. It is a family heirloom that I could never replace. So those are some of those stories that I'll never get over, and I'll never properly be able to appreciate enough.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and you touched on it just very quickly there, but I guess the last part of the story that we really haven't talked much about yet is the fact that you're a native Ross Countyan, you're a Unioto grad, and you're a reigning, defending Ross County Fair king.
That's right.
I think the thing that really impresses me about you, Ben, is you've never forgotten your roots. I know you make trips back every once in a while when you can, but it's a busy time. But you still hold that joy and that honor for Ross County because of the upbringing you can. Well, why do you think it stuck with you so much?
Well, the community you grow up in absolutely is part of your formative process. I was shaped by my parents, obviously, and my family influence. I was shaped by Coach Tressel and John Cooper and that Ohio State experience. But fundamentally, growing up in Chillicothe was 100% a part of that. Playing for the Cider Valley Youth League with Harold Price as my coach and Bob Davis making us run bear crawls when we were in elementary school. I didn't know what a bear crawl was, but Bob Davis was treating us like we were in Vietnam. We were down army crawling like a bunch of soldiers. And so I with life experience, I try to, as much as I can, replicate some of those things that I know helped make me what I am today for my own kids. And you mentioned the Fair King. I guarantee you, I make more agricultural references and 4-H or hog show references than any broadcaster in the United States. I will find a way to compare high-end show cattle to college athletics at any way, shape, or form. But it's part of who I am. And with a mom as a school teacher and a dad who even still farms to this day, that rural upbringing, that small town America upbringing, it's getting harder to do today. The world is getting smaller, like it's caving and closing in around us. But I think the sense of who I am comes from that grounding that comes from that small town experience. Because when I lived in bigger cities, when I'm only an hour away from Atlanta here in Georgia, where I make my home, is completely different. Living in New Jersey when I was a part of those Jets team, fundamentally different. Not bad, not better, not worse, just very different. And so those diversity of experiences living in, I would have loved to have played with one team, been a 10-year starter, get a couple Pro Bowls, be a franchise tag or two. That would have been awesome. It wasn't in God's plans for me, but the experience of living in 5 different cities and having 5 different communities that cheered for you and supported you and had different expectations of you. Those Jets fans were demanding. They wanted you to be good, and if you weren't, they were going to tell you about it. And that was a little jarring, but at the same time, as soon as you break through that shell, you realize these people would give you the shirt off your back if you needed it. That's just the approach, the life, that community's culture is part of that. And so as I had more experiences in different cities, I became more nostalgic and sentimental to my own experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, I mean, you grew up in a community that's very tight-knit and close. And you sharing your story about like that moment, lifting up the trophy, you lifted that up for our entire community. The ownership that Ross County and Chillicothe, and I mean, everybody just like grabbed onto that, and we're so proud of you and being a part of that and like bringing that home to us. And so I just remember watching that game, and it was late because the game was out there, so we was in the middle of the night, and when the ball hits the ground and we realized that we're national champions, like I still say we. And, I wasn't a part of that team. I watched. Yeah. But you have a community that vicariously lived through your experience, and you have a community that's super proud of all of the things you've accomplished. So it's exciting to hear that that's still so important to you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I felt that, and I carried that. I don't know if you'd call it a burden, but that responsibility with a tremendous amount of pride. It did mean something to me that not everyone has that special connection to their greater community. And Southern Ohio football is better and good, but it's we don't have that infrastructure that Cleveland has, or some of the Columbus schools, or Cincinnati. That it's just that's one of the byproducts of being small town. And so the fact that there's not a pipeline of Buckeyes that I keep in touch with Drew Brazel. I've met Garen Ferris, who was a Chillicothe guy on to play in the NFL. And so I think, with just like anything, when there's scarcity, it matters a little bit more.
Right.
I live here in Gwinnett County, Georgia. I'm still staggered by this stat where we make our home. This county alone has currently 600 college football players. Like I can't wrap my head around that. I don't know if Chillicothe and Ross County has ever had 600 college football players in its existence. And so around these parts, it's no big thing. There's not that excitement because it's just commonplace. Cam Hayward went to school down here. Bradley Roby went to school down here. Ohio State Grace, like it's just part of the infrastructure of what they are. So for me to have that experience of being one of the few ultimately makes the experience and the memory, I think, a little more sweet, that we savor it more so.
It's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, to Marty's point too, I feel like I still remember where I was when I heard that you caught a touchdown in the NFL, ironically enough, right? Like,
Same.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, that's a Ross County touchdown, man. That's a 2-yard pass, And I think, if I remember correctly, you guys were wearing throwback jerseys that day. For some reason,
Yeah,
they were
isn't
like
that the
a
worst?
green and gold type thing.
I get one chance. I get one chance to jump up and down and celebrate a touchdown, and it looks like I'm playing in the 1950s for the New York Titans. Everybody's like, "What? Did you play in the USFL? Was that XFL?" I was like, "No, it was the Jets. They were alternate." So I don't even get to have like the era appropriate. And I wonder how that will age, because everybody knows what a Buckeye uniforms. Everybody knows what a Jets uniform. They didn't know what the Jets that were the Titans in the 50s, and that in a game in 2009 they wore the alternate uniform to try to sell some more merch. But that's my burden to carry.
Yeah. You're obviously a husband and a father now. I think you have 2 daughters, right?
They're one's about to be 16 in a couple of weeks, and one's about to be 14 in about a month. And that is amazing and terrifying simultaneously.
I can feel that. Marty can too. He has 2 daughters. I have 4.
I'm a girl dad too, man. I wouldn't trade it for anything though.
So
there's a high percentage of
tips,
girl dads in the NFL. There were a lot of girl dads in the NFL. I don't know. Again, I'm a man of faith. Maybe God is evening things out, or getting us back for something, because there is truly something about being a girl dad. I'm so thankful for it. I told my wife even before we knew what we were having when she was pregnant. I had a sense that I was destined to be a girl dad, and I'm justified. I'm confirmed by the process now. Even I've still got several years left, and you never stop being a dad, but I'm so thankful for what having girls and daughters means, and I'm thankful that they don't Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead and finish.
No, I think I tell people now, I've been tested by fire. Having gotten 2 girls through teenage years and getting 2 more, I got 2 more coming behind it. I've been tested by fire. So
yeah, it is. It has highs. It has lows. There's times where you just put your head down and look, keep out of the way, watch out.
That's right.
But there's a specialness to it. And what I was alluding to, I would have, I'm thankful that my girls don't have to live up to any expectations. I think a son of a successful athlete unfairly has to meet some kind of societal expectation, and it's there's some expectation for my girls, but I think that I had sons. So I'm grateful for that.
So do you see two more Hartsocks going to Ohio State?
That's we're starting to have those kinds of conversations with our sophomore, soon to be junior. I've put it out there. I've said, hey, I know some people. I've got a decent reputation. I might be able to get a good word in for you.
Yeah.
I don't think that I know her grandparents would be thrilled with that. Mom and dad still live in Chillicothe, and they would love that. I don't think I would deal with it quite as well. It's probably looking like our oldest is interested in SEC schools and big football stadiums and those kinds of things. And it's fun right now because I can kind of sense she knows she's a Buckeye fan. We've taken her to games and I can kind of that tension she feels of, Dad, I like Ohio State because we're an Ohio State family. That's part of what our family has been. But I am trying to make sure she understands your loyalty will be to the school that you choose, and there will be magic in that experience, whether she goes to Georgia or she goes to Clemson or if she goes to Ole Miss, that she will make her own path, and there'll be fun when we are arguing against if my team plays her team, and that will be different but precious nonetheless. And so she's got no expectations, and I can't wait for her to have that experience. Her and my my youngest has shown interest in smaller schools, but I'm just so thankful for them to have that unique college experience that I think many people say are some of the most fun and formative experiences a young person has in their life.
Yeah. Well, I'm blessed. My son plays baseball with your nephew. And so I get to see your mom and dad at baseball games during the summer. So I'm looking forward to another summer with them as the Dragons try to conquer the A-ball league at the Scioto Valley Youth League this year. So.
Yeah, that the Dragons are a new upstart program down there at Mary Lou Patton Park. I was a part of the Eagles juggernaut. I think they're still running things down there at Mary Lou Patton. Doug Brown, another great coach. Very formative as a young. I was a terrible little league baseball player, but I had a ton of fun being on that team. And I don't call baseball a big passion of mine, but I do enjoy those memories. And it's fun to watch my nephews, Brooks and Easton White. They do a great job down there, and their dad CJ does a great job helping at the park and the program. And it's fun to see another generation enjoy those same fields that we grew up playing on as well.
Yeah. Well, I got to say this was amazing. And, I think of you as somebody that has represented Ross County so well. I consider you to be one of the most blessed guys that I've ever laid eyes on and coming out of Ross County. I've been, 22 years I've been in Ross County, and your story has been such a great story for our community. And, of course, talking to you and getting your perspectives on things. One thing I wanted to ask you, because you now talk in the realm of college sports. What are your thoughts on NIL, name, image, and likeness, and why and what it's doing to the college game? Do you think it's a lot of people think it's ruining the game. Do you think it's that easy to say that it's ruining the game, or is it more complex than that?
Real quick, and we probably should go ahead and turn the page on a new episode of the podcast, and we'll just talk this NIL, because I can talk this for probably 3-4 days.
We can do that, sure.
This is big. Horizon Fiber Internet is ready.
Let them get you hooked up and power your Wi-Fi network
with the speed and reliability that only a 100% fiber network can do.
Horizon is ready to help you do what you do better. With real people, real rates, and a real service.
Connect with them today, and the first month is free, plus no contracts and no data caps. Call 740-772-8331
or visit horizonconnects.com/Chillicothe
to sign up today.
thank you for the kind words about what you said about me, but I will defer back to my mom and dad. And I also quick to point out my brother. My brother, dad's a farmer, and my brother is a high level executive at John Deere. And I jokingly talk about how that's the pride of the family. I was just the other brother off gallivanting around playing a game. My brother's doing amazing things as an employee at John Deere. But my sister, Abby, still lives in the community there in Chillicothe. Her kids go to Uniota. And I mean this sincerely, she is the best of us. She's an amazing person and does great things. And I'm thankful for opportunities to do these types of events or their podcasts and interviews. But my sister, she won't get the recognition, but she'll get it from me most certainly. So I'll say that. The NIL thing, I hate it. It's just simple as can be. I hate it. We all knew that we're against it. It sounds heartless to be against players being able to earn off their name, image, and likeness. But we all knew that weaponized recruiting would be the unintended consequence, and we're certainly there. Right. And so living down here in the Southeast where it's, NIL, somebody made this point today. It says NIL down here means now it's legal. There's a perception that I think there's some truth to, that it's been going on down in this part of the country. And so now they just do it above board. And so there's more comfort with that I am thankful when I heard an interview with Mark Pantoni, the general manager at Ohio State, that they're choosing to do things the right way, that they'll let NIL happen for guys like CJ Stroud and guys like Marvin Harrison, who are proven products, and use it that way and not use NIL as weaponized recruiting. I've heard Michigan is doing the same, and I don't like to align myself in many ways with Michigan, but if they're on board with that, I'll support them and stand alongside. And Notre Dame is another that seems to be doing things through the spirit of what NIL was supposed to be. But I don't. The reason why I was against it is because I knew that you couldn't properly corral it. Right. And now I don't know that we'll ever be able to put that genie back in the bottle. And NIL was always a gateway to full-on professional college football. It was presented as, well, this will be the hybrid model that will stop the rush towards full professionalism college sports. I've just said that no, it's the gateway. It'll get us there faster. And there are already court cases being tried right now, one in Philadelphia, one in California, that as much as the leaders want to try to put some structure in, the court system probably will make the decision for us. And just like NIL was flooded and it became the Wild West, and we're living that reality right now, true full-on pay for play, whether it's a revenue stream, whether, sharing of media rights, how that gets worked out, lawyers will figure that out. But there will be two gigantic unintended consequences. The first of which is financial. There's an enormous amount of money coming into college athletics. The Big Ten new media deal, over $1 billion a year. That's a huge amount of money, but it is a finite amount of money. And if you have to give 20, 30, 40, 50% to the players, the football players, the ones earning, then there will be people that are cut. And I make this point that the NCAA has 460,000 student athletes in Division I, II, and III. Hundreds of thousands of athletes. If we're going to give 50% to, I recognize the blood, sweat, and tears of the football and basketball players are the ones funding this whole thing. But the institution of amateur sports is built on this model that, it's a little unfair, but I argue the ones that are really valuable, like CJ Stroud, I'm asking you to wait a couple of years until you go to the NFL, and then there will be that pot of gold. And so the financial ramifications, I think there will be a lot of non-revenue sports, Olympic sports, and women's sports may have protections because of Title IX, but there will be repercussions ashamed of. So that's financial. Second, and this is the one that matters to me the most, but I think a lot of people think it's schmaltzy and sentimental, and it doesn't carry any water, but it is the developmental side of college athletics. There are two things in this country that I think are institutions that develop young people in a way unlike anything else in our country has, and it's the United States military and it's youth or amateur sports. And so when you professionalize amateur sports, which college athletics are the crown jewel of amateur sports, that development, that shared experience of chasing a championship and struggling together, not for the check, not for the money, but for the guy that you share a locker with, for the guy that you sweat the whole summer with, for the potential future of the NFL and the money that would come from that, sure, but not yet. We're going to undermine that when we get a full professional model, and it will go to, like what I mentioned earlier, we'll just have 100 independent contractors signed to contracts for Ohio State or Penn State or whatever, and it muddies the water. And the illustration I use is it's kind of like the commercialization of Christmas. And as a Christian, the Christmas is a very sacred holiday of my faith. But in the commercialization of it, it's gotten more challenging for me to celebrate due to my faith, because I've got the distractions of Santa Claus and presents and all of the things that we all love. But that's not the true season for those that worship for that cause. That's kind of what we're doing for college athletics. And the concept of who cares? Money's money, and they deserve their due. I use this illustration. I say that college athletics has been a big business for a long time. But it's like a national park. If you've ever been to Yellowstone National Park, right outside the gate of Yellowstone, there's every kind of Walmart, water park, and McDonald's that you could ever want. But once you cross that gate into the pristine nature that is Yellowstone National Park, that's set apart. That's different. It's protected. Now, from a capitalistic perspective, you know what would be really profitable? Building condos right next to Old Faithful. Putting in a water park right next to the Grand Canyon would be it would kill. But that's not the point. The point of a national park is to be set apart for something different. And college athletics, for me, because I was formed by it, I was shaped by it, it's something that I'm passionate about. It deserves to be set apart. And I would protect that. And I say all that knowing I know that I'm losing this argument, and I'm going to be the one losing this argument. But like the soldiers at the Alamo, they may knew what their futures held. I'm going to try to take down as many as I can before I get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, when you throw in the idea of college free agency, which is the transfer portal, of course, it's become a crazy environment, and I guess to get to your point as well, it was always true that coaches could leave whenever they wanted to, and players had no ability to do that for a long period of time. But now that we've seen it even out a little bit, it almost becomes like any person that didn't get the playing time that they wanted can now leave and go someplace else and find something else. And it seems a little icky after a while.
Well, you could always transfer, allowed to transfer even back when but there was the year in residence. And the reason that was there was because you needed to make sure you're 17, 18, 19 years old, these young guys, you need to have a reason for pause. We all make rash decisions. If I had the option to pull the ripcord after one bad day, and I had plenty of bad days as a redshirt freshman, and when I was redshirting, like those things happen, it would have been easy. But the year in residence it incentivized you to pause. Do I really want to do this? And it also helped you. It incentivized graduation. And so if you look at the transfer portal, Mount Rushmore, the Joe Burrows and the Jalen Hurts and the Kyler Murrays, those guys were graduates. And that happened even back in my era. If nobody faulted anybody if after 2-3 years in a program, hey, I'm never going to be here. I'd like to play college football. I don't want to come here and just sit the bench for my whole time. I want to go play. Then off you go. But with the portal, they've turned it into a dating app. It's Tinder for college quarterbacks. And so it's just incentivized this player movement. And it's also like, and I want to make sure to point out, it's not all players. Now that we live in this world where the old model of college football rosters were there was one sort. There was the sort coming out of high school. If you're good enough to go to Ohio State, you go to Ohio State. If you weren't good enough to go to Ohio State, you'd go to a MAC school or you'd go to a Mountain West school. But with the transfer portal, now there's a sort every year. And so now the pressure, there's plenty of players that are pulling the ripcord and getting out of Dodge because things didn't go well immediately. But there's also now coaches that used to say, okay, I missed on this kid coming out of high school. It's not panning out. We always joke saying we'll give them unlimited steaks and surgeries. You get the free meals at training table, and if you get hurt in practice, we'll get you patched up and we'll get you graduated. Have to in order to stay competitive, they have to be constantly churning that bottom 10% of the roster. Well, I know that life firsthand as an NFL player. That is not a pleasurable experience. That is not a healthy experience to live as an athlete, where every day you wonder, am I going to be here? When I got to college, I knew I would have to do something bordering on criminal to get put off the team. Now coaches, because in order to keep their own jobs, they have to constantly be refreshing their bottom part of their roster. There's going to be more and more players say, sorry, son, we missed on you. You're not an Ohio State caliber player. You probably ought to look out to a smaller school. Maybe you need to go down to D2. You can argue the merits of that. It's fundamentally different, and I don't think it's healthy for anybody, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And in all honesty, I'd seen a couple of tweets that you had done, or at least some times when you're on Sirius and you talked about it. So I knew you'd have some specific thoughts on it. I guess we all yearn for the days of gone by, right? Like we all look back at other things and remember it fondly. And there's a lot about that I don't like, because the good old days weren't always good. And, but at the same time, it just feels like a different time frame. And as a college football fan, and it's my favorite sport by far, not just because my team is currently winning, but because I've always loved the game and the pageantry of it. I just hope that it's not going to create this situation where we have, 3 or 4 good teams and everybody else is just playing games to make money. And I think competitiveness is going to get harder, and that's like happening in real time. The Big Ten media deal is going to make it next. Like the Pac-12 may no longer exist in a couple of years, right. And what happens to? We interviewed Mike Goresko, the commissioner of the American Athletic Conference, today. What happens to the group of 5 conferences that in the world where you're trying to compete with Alabama and Ohio State? It's hard for TCU to do what it did this year, but we're building a structure that's going to make it even harder for them to compete each and every step of the way. And so it is discouraging. And in many ways, where will it stop? It's easy to look at a problem like this and say, well, CJ Stroud deserves that money and Marvin Harrison deserves that money. I understand that, like for those individual, but for the greater good, we in our society have many examples where we say we've drawn a line in the sand. You can't drive until you're 16. I grew up on a farm. I could have driven at 13. But society said you need to wait till you're 16, voting at 18, drinking at 21. These things are drawn in the sand. And now we're changing this world of college athletics to say they're earning, they need it. They deserve it, and let's give it to them. Well, now you're already seeing it. High school kids. There's a high school freshman in the state of Georgia that is considering leaving the state of Georgia because this state doesn't do high school NIL. And so he's going to go move another state and chase that dollar. And again, it undermines the whole point of the game, because in a world like at the high school level, in the high school football world, there are 1 million high school football players, give or take 1 million. Of that 1 million, not 2% go pro, not 0.2% go pro, 0.02% go pro. So those are the ones that are, quote, that can earn the money. Those are the ones that are marketable in this environment. But we're changing that structure for this 0.02% that most of those guys will go pro anyway, and we're going to undermine the foundation for the other 99.98. I just can't why we're so quickly doing these things, because we're losing the forest for the trees. Yeah, we know about Joe Burrow and we love cheering for the best of the best,
but we're going to soil it and maybe lop off opportunities for thousands and thousands of other non-revenue sports and others along the way.
Yeah. Well, and we always talk about this is life-changing money. Big pro contracts are life-changing money, but there are a lot of cautionary tales in there too about life-changing money in a bad way. Right. And I think we're pushing that down further and further. And I wonder at some point in time, when are we going to hear these cautionary tales about high school kids? And that worries me greatly.
The Todd Marinoviches of the world, it's like history repeating itself. The Todd Marinovich was bred to be a robo quarterback, and I tweeted that day. Maybe you saw that we are building a structure that incentivizes that type of behavior. Right. And listen, I'm sure in Ross County, and I'm sure that you guys have some of those parents that are so hyper focused that it's scholarship or bust. But I think in general, there's a larger percentage of families that say, you know what, I want my kid to go play on a baseball team. If he's good, awesome. If he's really good, maybe he'll go to college. That's all good. I know down here in Georgia, where I mentioned it is so highly sophisticated, and they have an absolute pipeline to colleges and pros. That's why they've got 600. But I also know for the majority of these kids, the joy is robbed. The pressure is numbing. And I'm all for pressure. I'm all for, shoot the free throw behind with the game on the line. That's the kind of pressure that we all can grow from. Because you know what? If you're a decent free throw shooter, that's a winning proposition. I was a 50% free throw shooter. I wasn't very good at all. But at least that's a 50-50 shot. When you're talking about scholarship or bust for a youth sport, you're talking about less than, I think I looked this up the other day, it's like 7% of high school football players go to any level of college. Right. And so that it's changing the structure for this small percentage, and it's wrecking the experience and the opportunity for development for the overwhelming majority.
And that small percentage they were already going to get paid. It's just they would have to wait for it.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. There aren't that many career-ending injuries as much as people want to present that. The whole opt-out thing, that is another rant that I could do, all day long. The examples of, there have been 3 or 4 guys over the course of the last 15 years, and there's been tens of thousands of players playing games. It's long odds, but people are treating it as if it's a certainty. So I try to remind myself, I was this big Eddie George fan, just like everybody in the state of Ohio. When Eddie George was coming through, I looked this up. They played in a Citrus Bowl in 1994. And I try to imagine myself as a 13-year-old kid sitting down to watch Eddie play his last game. He'd already won the Heisman. We knew that he was going to go pro. And I try to imagine what would it have taught a 13-year-old version of myself if I sat down to watch the Buckeyes in a Citrus Bowl and I find out, well, Mom, Dad, where's Eddie? Yeah. Why isn't Eddie in this game? This is the bowl game. This is the bonus game. This is the most important one. But my parents would have to then tell me, well, Ben, Eddie's looking out for himself here. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. He's got a pot of gold waiting for him at the end of the year. And so his loyalty is conditional. He doesn't, he's a good Buckeye, but his loyalty is only conditional up to a point. Well, that's today's reality. What are we teaching our 13-year-old little Ben Hartsocks now is that your loyalty is only as good as the value that you think you can get by not being loyal. It's just completely off-putting.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we're wrong, right?
That's right.
I mean, in all honesty, like I love college sports. I find myself watching college baseball and softball. And I don't know anything about hardly any of those teams. But I find myself glomming onto some college baseball team that's playing in the College World Series and rooting for them as if they were my favorite team for life. And, I hope all of this doesn't lead to the demise of things. But, I also know what happens when money gets involved, and it's usually not good.
Yeah, in many ways, I feel like I'm the canary in the coal mine. That All of my colleagues often, I've taken on the old man shaking my fist at the sky, and I'm just going to wear it at this point. Like that's you can call me that, and that's fine. This is what I buffer all of my frustration with. Is I will say this. I am a very vocal and passionate minority population. Now, I still stand by my stance, but I think for most people, whether you're paying the kids or whether you're not, most fans just want Ohio State to be good, and they want Penn State to be good, and they want their team to be good, whether they're pros or not. I think that's the most. And ultimately, as long as it's the Michigan winged helmet and there's still the Buckeye leaves and it's the Alabama A and the Clemson Tiger Paw, we'll watch it no matter what. And I'll watch it as well. Now, that doesn't mean that it will be different. I connect more with the Joe Burrow that wore cutoff T-shirts from Athens High School than I do the Joe Burrow that wears Gucci sunglasses and fur coats. But it doesn't change that Joe Burrow was good when he was the cutoff T-shirt guy, and he's good as the swaggy NFL quarterback. It's just different. So I will, complain about the changes, but I do recognize Saturdays are still going to be great at the Horseshoe, and they're still going to play their hearts out. It's just going to be a lot different than what it was.
Yeah. Well, college football is only how many months away? So hopefully we'll be back to talking about that again soon. But Ben, again, thanks. This has been a fascinating time together, and I have great respect for you. I have great respect for your career and the way you've conducted yourself. And as I mentioned earlier, I think Ross County can be super proud of you. And I'll keep listening on Sirius XM, and hopefully when you're back in town sometime soon, we'll run into each other, maybe at the ballpark or something like that.
Yeah, I would absolutely enjoy that. Yeah, and one of the things that keeps me connected in my hometown is we've got our local Chillicothe, Ross County YouTube celebrities. I watch Brian's farming videos and Jeremy Forkham at Cairn Creek, Ohio Flying Farmer with Rod Jones. And, I'm a low level YouTuber myself, so you can check out my YouTube channel. One of the things I really enjoy is going to see, as passionate as I am about Ohio State, I went to Ole Miss a couple times down in Oxford. Those Ole Miss fans are just as passionate about their school. And I got to go to Happy Valley. And so I made YouTube videos and vlogs of my travel to some of these great iconic universities. And I'm more of that with what I get to do. I get some really awesome behind the scenes access to things. And what's something in life worth unless you can share it with somebody else? So I really like trying to show some of those experiences that I get as a broadcaster. And so you can check that out for anybody if you stuck along this long into our podcast, you'll definitely enjoy my YouTube content.
Well, Ben, thanks again, man. I appreciate it. It's probably been a long day
thanks,
for you,
Ben.
so I really appreciate you taking the time, and Godspeed to you from Ross County.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. Enjoy what you're doing. Thankful for what you're doing as well. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. You're listening to the Feels Like Home podcast with Mike Throne and Marty Ford. Powered by Horizon. This is big. This is gig.
It feels a little strange, but I don't feel alone. We just settled in and it already